C4 and Brian Neiman.
WBAL News Radio 1090, FM 101.5, and the WBAL radio app.
Well, Brian Neiman, audience, back in 2012, then Baltimore City Councilman Carl Stokes. Now you occasionally hear him. He said in this past day or so for T.J. Smith, Carl Stokes, he led the effort, Brian, to get an initiative for Baltimore City voters to vote on, which called for an audit of 14 different city agencies every 4 years. It was rotated, like some this year, some next year. But every 4 years, they got an audit. Fast forward to now, where one of the organizations that is not regularly scheduled for that audit, because I guess it's been newly created, that is the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, is out there. And a lot of people are wondering whether or not they shouldn't fall under that same guideline of being audited that these other city agencies are. There's an entity called the Baltimore City Department of Audits. It's comprised of members of the city council. It has the comptroller, Bill Henry, which heads it. And they were most recently asked about this. What do you think about auditing Muncie?
Right.
To a person, I think it's a pretty good idea. So joining us right now is a member of that Baltimore City Department of Audits. We know him well, Baltimore City Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer, and we will talk with the councilman about the crisis in Israel at the end of our discussion with this. But first of all, good morning, Councilman.
Hey, Councilman.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Look, let's talk about this because, I remember that Carl pushing this, the fact that we should have regular audits of different city agencies. I didn't realize the process, and it's important for us to discuss it, Councilman, of getting a Muncie in that line to be audited. Explain that to us, please.
I mean, the basic gist is that there's a limited capacity onto how many agencies and entities could be audited. And so there is a rotation. And like you had just mentioned, Muncie is a fairly new agency, and so certainly now there's a need to add them to the mix and the rotation, being that they went from a non-existent agency to all of a sudden a very well-funded agency.
Right. I was going to ask, does that have a lot to do with it, the amount of money that goes to a certain organization or a certain part of the agency?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, when you have smaller entities that, are operating, doing some basic functions, and we're seeing what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and you can understand where the money's going and what we're getting in exchange for that money, you can't really spend the time to audit them because you're doing it at the expense of other entities that should be audited. And so most of the audits are against, some of the larger agencies, so we can really get a deep dive into it. And so, a small group that, has a $1 or $2 million budget is not something that we would have the capacity to audit. Whereas when you're seeing them getting tens of millions of dollars and their budget is increasing tenfold year over year, that's when you have to prioritize that entity and make sure that the money is going to the correct places that it needs to. And there's been a lot of questions surrounding that entity. And so being that the agency has not been very transparent and has not responded to the city council or the media or the public's questions, I think further exacerbates the issue and requires us to take immediate action.
So Baltimore City Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer joins us once again. We know he represents his own district, but he's also a part of this Baltimore City Department of Audits. And just so the audience can understand, even though these other 14 agencies were voted on by the voters and probably it will require a charter change to get Muncie added, your agency, which you sit on, you could go to the city auditor, understand this, Josh Pash, and your committee, which you sit on, you could ask them to add Muncie without it going to the voters, couldn't you?
I believe so, but I do believe there needs to be some change. We're getting some clarity on that. I know majority of the members of the committee are willing to and are interested in seeing Muncie be audited, and so I know that's being pursued right now. I don't think we've gotten the legal opinion back just yet on whether or not we can just simply put a motion on the floor at a future meeting that would do it, or whether or not it would have to go back and be a piece of legislation, like you mentioned, that normally is done for a charter amendment.
All right, this one is a kind of a weird entity, though, right? Safe Streets, because the money goes from Muncie to Catholic Charities into LifeBridge Health, and then it goes into Safe Streets. So would you be asking LifeBridge and Catholic Charities to open up their books, and also you can order to see where all of this money is going?
Well, as you know, I've been asking them to open up these Safe Streets books for quite some time now. But absolutely, I think that there's been a shell game going on where money has been going to outside entities for them to fund these certain functions, and I don't think that allows those entities to then shield how the money is being spent. At the end of the day, they are spending taxpayer money for these functions, and so even though they are not a city agency that's required by law, entities like LifeBridge, they should be volunteering this information in the efforts of transparency. When it's at a time when entities like LifeBridge need to be focused on their medical institution and improving their level of care, and for them to be taking on some of these functions that are highly political and are not very transparent in nature really just begs the question of where their priorities are, and I think it behooves them to be transparent and show, hey, this is the taxpayer money that we're receiving, and here's where that money's going.
Do you know if they're? I'm sorry, Steve.
Okay.
Do you know if they're making money off of it? LifeBridge and Catholic Charities, I assume, would be a nonprofit. But what about LifeBridge? Do you know if they're actually getting any money off of it?
I've asked that question before, and the answers that I've gotten is that there's a small administrative overhead, and so. I always ask the question, what does small administrative overhead mean?
Yeah, that could mean a $300,000 a year salary for somebody.
Right. Like when I think of like small administrative overhead, I think of like really like the raw basic cost. Like if you're an entity in the city and you are trying to help the city and therefore, overseeing a program, you're really doing that as part of your mission because after all, it should be part of their mission. And if not, they shouldn't be taking it on. And so when I looked at things like the Children and Youth Fund, where there's a large percentage going to the overhead, it really begs the question. We have entities in the city like the planning department and other functions that could oversee these programs. And when it comes to Safe Streets, Monty did oversee that program with the administration of that agency. And so when you go and outsource that, all of a sudden what you're doing is you're taking even more money off the top, which doesn't then trickle down. They then say, hey, we need this additional funds because of that. And so I think everyone's entitled to know how much money, entities like LifeBridge are getting for it, even if it is just administrative. But we should know that because that's additional money that we weren't paying, 2 or 3 years ago when, it was being managed by other entities.
City Councilman Schleifer, when it comes to this entity, Muncie, and then, of course, Safe Streets, which is underneath of them. When I listen to Councilman Costello, who's also a member of this commission that you're on, or Comptroller Bill Henry, you want something that's going to be out here helping to reduce crime and working to proactively do. It's not that; it's that you want accountability, and that's what the voters have told us is there doesn't seem to be any accountability for Muncie and Safe Streets in this process.
Correct, and the irony of that, I know a lot of the Safe Streets guys that operate in my district. Some of them are great guys that are working hard. And they too want transparency. They don't want to be, have this cloud cast over them. Some of these workers are out there. They're trying to turn their life around and turn their community around, and they don't want this cloud over them. And they also don't want to be associated with some of the members in other locations or other places that have been part
doing
of
some illegal things.
And so it comes down to the same thing that we require of the police department. And with this consent decree is a tremendous amount of transparency and accountability and oversight. And and that protects the good guys, the guys who are out there doing the right thing every day. It protects them because they don't want to be associated with the nefarious activities that are going on. It's the same thing when it comes to Safe Streets. You have a lot of great people who are trying to turn their community around, who want to participate, who want to partner with these entities, but there's just too much cloud of doubt there, and there's no oversight to really sort out the locations that are really doing the work versus the locations that aren't.
What's your gut feeling? Do you think it'll happen? Do you think you're going to be able to get the audit?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, absolutely. I mean, but also you have to keep in mind, we're coming into an election year. And so who's to say, whether or not Muncie as an entity would even exist if somebody else if there were to be a new mayor, or whether or not this administration would reprioritize. There's a lot of unknowns. And that also plays out because Muncie is a newly formed entity, and if a new administration were to come in, who's to say that they would continue that? I don't think they would.
Well, I know what has happened because we talked with Councilman Costello about this. They went from about 5 people when they started running a couple of years ago to over 40 now in their staff. So they're growing, as you said, exponentially, and we'll monitor that. I can't have you on, though, Councilman, without talking about what is happening in Israel right now. What we're watching, there was a gathering in Pikesville yesterday of people from across the area showing support for Israel. If you can just weigh in, just your thoughts, because I saw you participated at Beth Tefillah yesterday.
Yeah, there was Beth Tefillah last night. There was a few thousand people there, and then the night before at Shomer Emunah in my district, there was also a few thousand people coming together from all faiths and all denominations, and everybody needs to be unified on this topic. I mean, this has been the largest killing of Jews since the Holocaust, and people need to be unified no matter what they think of a government or anything else. They need to understand that Israel has every right to defend itself, and they will exercise that right. And I can tell you, I've been to Israel many times. Israel doesn't want war. It's the dictators and the leadership in Gaza and Iran that are the ones who start these wars. They're clear on what they want. They chant it. They want death to Israel and death to the Jews. But what people need to understand is right after that, they also chant death to America. Mm-hmm. So they want full destruction, really of this world, of everybody who's not them. And so, we need to be strong on our support for Israel, for them to completely wipe Hamas and these terrorists off the face of the earth once and for all, because otherwise they're going to continue to do these heinous attacks. And frankly, locally, all leaders and everywhere across the country and the world need to speak up. And when we see statements, especially one that I saw last night from Hopkins President Ron Daniels, putting out a statement that's trying to put out a balanced or make it seem like there's two sides to the story. There's no two sides to the story. I mean, his statement included an attempt to shame Israelis' Air Force response. There is no response. There is no response that is strong enough other than complete dismantling and destruction of these terrorists.
When you're beheading babies, when you're going around beheading babies, that is not, there's no equivocation in that, Councilman.
Right, and exactly. And so there's no two sides to that. So, and you're 100% right. Anybody who's out there justifying raping and murdering of women, beheading of babies, and burning of children and families alive in their homes, those people are obviously insane and need to seek serious help. And to see out of Maryland's and one of the biggest institutions, Hopkins, to see its president put out a statement which seemingly is shaming the Israeli Air Force response, or making it seem like there's two sides to this, or towing a line, are really is shameful and really discouraging. And the president of Hopkins is Jewish. I mean, so it's even worse when you see that coming from somebody who really should know better.
We see it at Harvard, Brian. We talked about it.
It's shocking. I have to say, this has been the most eye-opening thing that I have experienced, here. The reaction from college campuses and college presidents is just alarming to me. Alarming. And it is not just the Hopkins president. This has happened at George Washington University. Yep. It's happened at UVA, Northwestern. We talked about Vanderbilt yesterday. Harvard has like 23 clubs and organizations. The Black Lives Matters group in Los Angeles put a hang glider up and a picture to basically support Palestinians. Oh, my God. Can you not denounce for at least a week what happened?
Barbarity.
The atrocities?
Brian, it wasn't just Black Lives Matter in Los Angeles. It was all over in Chicago and other, their branches all across the country were putting that out, and it's quite this. It really is disgraceful. And what those leaders of those organizations need to understand is those people don't just want death to the Jews. That's where they're starting. They want death to everybody else, including black people. You see what happened in the Holocaust. They didn't just they went after and killed 6 million Jews. But they also went after and killed, black people. They killed other people that they did not deem
who weren't Aryan.
Exactly. And so, we all need to be unified on this. And when I see these clubs out of college campuses, you don't really expect too much. These students, they're not, they're obviously drinking a lot and doing a lot of drugs on campus, so you can't expect them to think straight. But when you see smart people like Ron Daniels and Hopkins, and putting out a statement like that, that's not 100% clear that we need to be fully behind Israel at a time like this, and we need to be unified that Israel can and should fully defend themselves and wipe Hamas off the face of the planet. Like, anything short of that is just unacceptable. And honestly, I don't know how Jewish students and Jewish supporters are really going to be able to participate with entities that are involved in these behaviors coming from the top. When you have the university president, when you have them putting out statements like that, I just simply don't understand how Jews and anybody with any self-respect can participate, can attend, or support those institutions.
Councilman Isaac Yitzhak Schleifer, I know what this means to you, and I really appreciate your time, and we'll talk more about this. Take care.
Yeah,
okay?
Great having you on. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it.